Good morning.
Good morning.
We are, so we're live. So welcome, I'm John Ahmann. Thank you for braving the weather here to our Transform Westside Summit. It's great to be your host. We are broadcasting live right now, so the camera's up. So if you want to tell anyone to watch it on our YouTube channel or our Facebook, that would be great. I'm here with my co-host,
Smile and
Ebony
wave.
Ford.
Yes, thank you, John. My name is Ebony Ford. I'd like to add my welcome to everyone either watching at home or wherever you may be, but especially to the people who, again, braved the weather and showed up today. I am a proud resident of English Avenue. I have a son, Jeremiah, that goes to Hollis, and I am a director at Quest CDC, all here on the West Side, Best Side. So again, thank y'all for being here.
Thank you, so I was going to do a quick overview of what you can expect for the rest of our morning, but I always like to start with acknowledging anyone that is here for the first time. So if you've never been to a Transform Westside Summit, would you raise your hand?
We're not going to make you speak, not until a little bit later.
All right. Awesome. Thanks for being here. So our program this morning, in just a moment, we're going to transition. We do a devotion every summit, transition to doing actually one of our board members on the Westside Future Fund, Shawntel, will be coming up in just a few minutes. And then after we do our devotion, there'll probably be more people coming in by that point. Then we do self-introductions to encourage networking and getting to know one another. And then we'll move into the program part of our morning. And we're going to, me along with a couple of my colleagues on the real estate team, we're going to give an update on we've launched a big fundraising effort called our Next Chapter campaign to develop a lot more high-quality affordable units as part of our Home on the West Side program, so we want to give everyone an update on that, and then we'll be done by 9 o'clock. And before we finish up, we always have a drawing as well, so that'll be the last part of our program.
Absolutely. Okay, sounds good. I'm very excited to hear more about our next chapter.
And I think, did I forget to give something? No.
Next chapter? Yeah, the next chapter is,
Yep.
yeah, you can go ahead and go over that if you'd like to. Number 3.
Yeah, no, so what I'll be talking about a little bit more is our Next Chapter campaign. We now own enough land to hit original housing targets we established as part of the West Side Land Use Framework Plan.
Thanks.
We established targets of high-quality rental as well as single-family. And now we own enough land to hit those targets, and I'll talk more about the numbers when we give our presentation. And yeah, I'll go more into it when we
Okay,
get to
not
it.
a problem at all. I'm very excited to hear about it. Honestly, the way that I started working with Westside Future Fund is I am actually a recipient of the Anti-Displacement Tax Fund, part of Home on the West Side program. And so Westside Future Fund is paying my taxes, my tax increase, to allow me to stay in my home for 20 years. So from 2017 to 2037.
Really, we said 20 years? I didn't
Yeah, I
know
know
that.
you did, right? And I'm going to hold you to it too. So it definitely allows me to stay in my house, because you can have a fixed rate mortgage, but if your taxes are continuing to rise every year, you still are in danger of losing your house. So I'm very, very excited personally to hear more about our our next chapter. And I'm also very, very happy to announce our second annual Ride for the West Side Run, Walk, Bike. How many people are going? How many people are registered? There you go. I am, for sure. So we're going to get some more people registered here today, right? The event is on Saturday, September 30th from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. This year we have partnered with Quest, which I am very, very excited about, to raise awareness and funds to support the equitable revitalization of the historic West Side. So again, please, you guys, come out, enjoy food, music, a heritage walking tour, games, and face painting, which Jeremiah will be very, very excited about. It is a community event, so children are definitely welcome, children and families. To learn more and to register, please visit westsidefuturefund.org/ride4westside.
Awesome.
Okay, and there's
There it is.
information here. So, and there, me and Jeremiah, that was us last year. It was awesome. So please, again, rideforthewestside.org/ride4westside. I'd also like to remind everyone to get connected. Please connect with us.
But hold on, I think we want to show a short video.
Right now? Let's do it.
Yep.
Oh, we got a video.
Oh, we have
Let's
a
do
video.
it.
Yes, we do.
The west side of Atlanta neighborhoods are important, one, because they've birthed some of the great minds of the world, but they're also communities that have been historically marginalized.
What makes these neighborhoods great is how they advance not only our cities and our states, but our countries, march to justice. The mission of the Westside Future Fund is to really champion a compassionate, holistic revitalization strategy for these historic neighborhoods on Atlanta's West Side.
I got involved in serving the West Side as I am the founder of Quest Community Development Corporation, in an effort to not only serve homeless individuals, by way of serving homeless individuals, real estate became an opportunity to provide affordable and decent and quality housing.
The historic Westside, I think where we and also Quest are really focused, right now, is ensuring we can deliver high quality, affordable housing so people who have a connection to the community, as there's more vitality, can afford to stay, or those who want to move back in.
To get involved was a no-brainer.
The Ride for the Westside, as much as it is about bringing people together and they can walk, bike, or run, but to learn more about all the great things that are happening on the Westside.
To bring in cycling, to bring in walking, and to bring in a historical tour to identify markers that are in the community while you're having fun. It's about attracting individuals to this side of town that someone may say, you know what, next time I'm looking for a home, I'll pick the Westside.
What I'm most excited about this year is having a bigger and better Ride for the Westside. You can expect to have fun, you can expect to have a great time, and to connect with some of the awesome history of our city, to meet a lot of folks, lifting up, all the great history of our Westside, as well as helping advance organizations that are really trying to make a difference in the community.
That was really nice. That was really nice, and thank you for catching me up, because I almost missed that awesome video. Real quick story behind that picture of Jeremiah in the very beginning. So when you walk and you haven't walked for a long time and your legs do that itchy thing? Yeah, he was extremely uncomfortable at the very moment that picture was snapped. So that's kind of why he was looking crazy. Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Very good video. So now, I ask you guys, please get connected with Westside Future Fund on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. If you are watching live on YouTube right now, please go ahead and subscribe as well. And also, I want to remind everyone who's here in person today to make sure that you get your tickets for the raffle to win a gift card from Home Depot and also from Goodwill. And we have had people that won both gift cards. So please make sure you get a red one and make sure you get a blue one right here in the front. Please do not wait till we get to the end and say, oh yeah, now I remember. I kind of gave my age away with that one. But anyway, make sure you get your red ticket and your blue ticket in the front, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Well, did anyone immediately go onto their phone when they saw our video to register for Ride on the Westside? You can do it right away if you felt inspired, because we'd love to have more people out for it.
Yes.
But now we're going to transition to the devotion part of our program. And so for those that are here for the first time, we do this as a level set at every summit, and we always ask a member of the community to give the devotion.
Yep.
And we take inspiration for the devotion from the Nehemiah chapter in the Old Testament. And one of the kind of an overall theme of Nehemiah is rebuilding Jerusalem. So as we think about holistic revitalization of the Westside, we draw inspiration from Nehemiah, not just the physical building of the wall, but many of the principles that were applied, the values that were applied as part of rebuilding community. And before I introduce our devotion speaker, I'm going to read a devotional statement that we read every time to level set for our devotion. It's become our tradition to begin our meetings with a positive, inspirational message from a member of our community, recognizing that many in our community are driven by their spiritual faith to participate in the Westside revitalization effort. The time at the beginning of our meetings is an opportunity to share various inspirational reflections. While the speakers may articulate their personal faith, it's meant to be inclusive, inspiring, and meaningful, with the story of Nehemiah as our guide. And I'm delighted that one of Westside Future Fund board member, I think now for about six years on the board, Shawntel Hebert Clark, also a relatively new mother as well. Yeah, she's been on the board since 2019. She also works with a great not-for-profit that does a lot of work on the West Side, the Atlanta Volunteer Lawyers Foundation. And she is a rising star. She's been Atlanta's Business Chronicles 2023 Corporate Counsel Awards, a lawyer by training. And she's a firm believer, and I'm sure we'll hear it reflected in this devotion, a firm believer in the Shirley Chisholm quote, "Service is the rent you pay, room on this earth." Service is the rent you pay, room on this earth.
Awesome.
Please come on up and lead us in our devotion. Thank you for doing it. And give her a warm welcome as she kind of comes on up.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, John and Ebony. I always usually start with greetings and salutations. That's my signature greeting, and I'm happy to be here. As John said, I'm Shawntel Hebert Clark. I've been on the Westside Future Fund Board since 2019, and I also serve on the GO team at Hollis Innovation Academy. Yep, shout out to Hollis. But my connection to the Westside actually goes back almost 20 years for when I first moved to Atlanta and began attending Simpson Street Church of Christ on Simpson Road. Now it's Boone Street, and now there's a new shiny building, but we were still in the old building, and it was still Simpson. And then Minister Andrew J. Harrison and the members at Simpson Street prayed me through law school at Emory. And I am forever grateful for the 10 plus years that I worshiped on the West Side and got to know people on the West Side and stopped in that Family Dollar that used to be on the West Side, and was just a part of the community. And I also have to say greetings to my church family at the Boulder Crest Church of Christ, which is on the East Side, but still love for the West Side. I'm not a preacher. I'm a Christian, and I have a word to share with you this morning. So when I was thinking about what I was going to say, I went to the book of Nehemiah, of course, and trying to pull from my personal life, what do I have going on? And so I'm going to start in Nehemiah 1. I'm going to read a few scriptures, and then I'm going to share my thoughts. So as you guys know, the book opens up. Nehemiah has heard what's going on with Jerusalem. He's sad about it. And Nehemiah 4 says, when I heard these things, I sat down and wept. And for some days, and I mourned and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven. And he lists his prayer. And then in verse 11 it says, Lord, let your ear be attentive to the prayer of this your servant, and to the prayer of your servants who delight in revering your name. Give your servant success today by granting him favor in the presence of this man. Then he shares that he was cupbearer to the king. Chapter 2 opens that he's bringing wine to the king. He looks sad. And the king is asking him, you're not sick, why are you sad? And he goes on to say that he wants to go to Jerusalem to rebuild the wall. And so chapter 2, verse 6 says, and it pleased the king to send me, so I set a time. And so then while things are going well, he asked for a few more things. And he asked for, a couple of letters, so he has safe travel. He asked for some resources. He asked for the king to, send the cavalry with me, right? Don't send me by myself. And so then chapter 2, verse 8 says, and because the gracious hand of my God was on me, the king granted my request. So at that point, you start doing your little praise dance. You thanking God, won't he do it? Blessed and highly favored. Whatever other forms of praise you might deem appropriate. But how many of you know that with that yes, with that blessing, with that favor comes work? So many times we pray to God for things without counting the cost of what will be required of us on the other side. As we lawyers like to say, you didn't read the fine print. Nehemiah had the blessing, the permission, and the resources of the king. But now he had to go to Jerusalem and actually rebuild the wall. For me personally, 2022 was gangbusters. It was filled with so many blessings. I married a wonderful man. In May, I gave birth to a little boy, my first child, in December. God said yes to my request. Won't he do it? 2023, however, has been a year of doing the work, of adjusting to my new normal, of being a wife and being a mother, while still trying to maintain my career as a lawyer, my community involvements, such as serving on the Westside Future Fund Board, and my relationships with family and friends. And to be honest, just trying to still be me. I like brunch, I like hanging out. And so I'll share with you guys that it hasn't all been pretty. The demands of a little human continue to stretch me and humble me and remind me that I need God daily. And so what have you asked for and received it? God said yes, and then it turned out to be a lot of work. a new job, a new house, a new relationship, a new client or contract, a new membership, a new funder or donor. Whatever it is, I'm here this morning to remind you that it's worth it. I am so in love with my 15-pound boss man. I'm also here to remind you all that you can do it and that God will give you what you need to be successful in your new chapter. That might be people, that might be resources, that might be someone that you meet in this room today. So as we prepare to hear about the next chapter of Westside Future Fund, let us remember how many companies and people and community partners have engaged to get us to this point. And then let us recognize the work that comes along with the next chapter. Thank you.
Shawntel, thank you for that devotion. I appreciate the message of with blessings becomes responsibility. So one of the things I've really appreciated, I moved into Vine City in 2019, and very well aware that when I walk around the neighborhoods, the blessings that I enjoy, in terms of a nice house, stable shelter. Not worried about my next meal, but like you said, along with that, especially seeing how many other people are suffering, how do we lean into service? And then, it's all, and I appreciate it too, it's often very hard in how you lean into your faith to give you strength. And, but I also want to say, thank you, because you always show up great for the Westside Future Fund. And as you mentioned, not only your service work on the board, but back to your service work on the Hollis Innovation Academy. So thank you for your testimony, and thank you for your continued service. And let's just thank her again for doing this morning. Very nice, thank you. So the next part of our program, for the folks that are new, is now we're going to take time to do self-introductions. And we have learned that this has been really such a key part of what makes these summits really special, that the self-introductions, and I'm going to come down in just a moment and go around to each table. You'll stand up and then hold the mic near your mouth, and please give your name and then affiliation. I work for such organization, or I live in this part of town, and then just don't say anything else. Just stop. And because we want to get around the whole room. And if you have something that you want us to message, you want us to get out, we're happy to do that through our social media challenges. But I would encourage you, as you go through the self-introductions, to really listen to other folks in the room, because I think at the end of the sum, there may be someone that you heard say something that you may be of service to helping them back to the message of the devotion, or other resources, other folks in the room may be able to help you get something done. So that's the real purpose of to foster connection as we think about how we build community. It's really about people connecting and leaning into something from a common value perspective. So I will start at the table that has two of my board members now. So we'll start. Well, you already spoke, but I'll speak with. Oh, sorry, I wouldn't want you not to have the live mic.
All right, thank you, John. Good morning, everybody. I'm T. Dallas Smith. What am I now? I'm CEO of T. Dallas Smith & Company. I used to be CEO and president, but it's just CEO now. I'm also a proud member of the Westside Future Fund, and I'm chair-elect for next year.
Yay.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Leroy Wright. I'm the proud pastor of First Thessalonian Missionary Baptist Church at 637 Joseph B. Boone Boulevard.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I am Ebony Killian, Managing Broker of Sovereign Realty and Management and President of Women's Council of the Empire Board of Realtors.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. Neil Shorthouse with Partners in Change. Happy to be here. Thanks all for coming.
Good morning. My name is Bob Dickinson with Dickinson Partners Group, also Executive Director of the Esteemed Sports Foundation, And as I remind John, the leading evangelist for Westside Future Fund outside the perimeter, with the
right.
exception of perhaps Dean Cathy.
All right.
Morning. Larry Stewart. I'm a resident of Grove Park and a member of the board at Grove Park Foundation. And for this capacity, I'm board chair of Atlanta Housing.
Thank you.
Good morning. I am Thelma Renault. I am a resident of English Avenue for over 50 years.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Keith Renault, and I'm a resident of English Avenue.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Charles Ford. I work with Westside Future Fund, and I'm a Morehouse grad as well.
Good morning. My name is Ebony Jones. I'm a Vine City resident. I have 2 kids at Hollis.
Great.
Good morning. Rogers Williams with Icon Filmworks.
Elijah Randall, E-Ram Media.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sandra Bush, and I'm a member, historic member of the Booker T. Washington neighborhood. You didn't see Booker T's statue up there, but Martin Luther King attended Booker T before he became famous.
Good morning, Adrian Williams, Families First.
Thank you.
Good morning. I am Terry Lee, and I serve as the Chief Operating Officer for Atlanta Housing.
Bob Butler, Coldwell Banker Real Estate.
Good morning, everyone. Lee Hall, Covenant House, Georgia.
Good morning. A. Finney, independent grant founder, writer, and thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, bright and early, everyone. My name is Matthew Coleman. I'm the founder of VI Capital Lending Group and the committee chair for the Real Estate and Professional Services Committee of the Atlanta Black Chambers.
All right.
Good morning. I'm Anne Marie Bedke, Executive Director of Griffith Observatory Foundation.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Corey Ashbourne, Investment Sales Advisor with Capstone Companies, and we focus on multifamily properties throughout Metro Atlanta.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Anthony Bellows. I'm a Westside resident.
Good morning. My name is Mike Russell. I'm a retired Army officer, and I volunteer with the Grove Park Neighborhood Association and also the National Monuments Foundation. And I do have one free gift for everybody. This weekend, tomorrow, Saturday at 5 o'clock, we're doing a free concert at the Millennium Gate Museum. If you would like a ticket, please see me. You can get in free. It's a mix of classical music with contemporary music celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month.
All right, free ticket, see you.
See me.
All right.
Good morning, Charles Merriweather, Goodwill.
Thanks, Charles.
Good morning. John McGee, Senior Consultant with VI Capital Lending and proud resident of Grove Park.
Good morning. My name is Brian King. Excuse me. I'm with Urban Residential Development.
Good morning. I'm Kathleen Bryant with Partners in Change. We're providing free life coaching for adults pursuing new goals.
Good morning, Brandon Sherwood. I'm a CPA with Eide Bailey.
Good morning, family. I'm Tillman Ward, Community Resource of Atlanta, based in historic Vine City, lifelong resident of the West Side, and our goal is to be and make that difference that we all can see. And a graduate of Booker T. Washington High and Marsh Brown.
Good morning. My name is Becca Ford. I work with a nonprofit known as the Lonely Entrepreneur.
Good morning. My name is Debbie Morris. I work for Newell Brands. I'm an executive coach, and I live off of Riverside, which is, I think, West Side.
You got to claim it.
Okay, Hollywood Road. I'll claim Hollywood.
All right.
Kevin Lynch, Commercial Real Estate Leasing.
Richard Taylor, Art Capital.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Happy Falcons Friday. Yeah, there we go. All right, got to throw that in, right? Good morning. My name is Tolton Pace, new Senior Program Officer with the Arthur M. Blank Foundation for Westside Atlanta.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Hello, I'm Maria Supporta with Supporta Report. Good morning.
Good morning, Nicole Jones, Westside Future Fund.
All right, you ladies are perfectly clustered to be self-introduce.
Good morning, Camille May, Grove Park resident, graduate of Spelman.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Justine Veal, also Grove Park. I'm a realtor for Keller Williams Peachtree Road.
Great.
Good morning, everyone, and I would be remiss in not starting by saying that I'm Danita Knight, President, CEO of YWCA of Greater Atlanta, bringing back the Phyllis Wheatley Westside YWCA in 2025.
All right, thank you.
Hi, I'm Marnie Pittman with Westside Future Fund.
Lee Harrop with Westside Future Fund.
Chelsea Moore, Westside Future Fund.
Marielle Hicks, Westside Future Fund.
Joanne Marioshi with Westside Future Fund.
Raquel Hudson, Westside Future Fund.
Hey everyone, Rachel Carey, Westside Future Fund.
Good morning everyone, Tamika Askew, Westside Future Fund.
Gerald Peak, Icon Filmworks.
All right, we're going to get everybody.
James Hammond, Icon Filmworks.
Tasama Haskins, TMPAV.
Misty Kelly, TMPAV.
David Herring, TMPAV.
Joe Baxillian, TMPAV.
Merrill Evans, TMPAV.
All right. Did anyone get missed as I head back to this? Got everyone? Jeremiah, did you raise your hand, Jeremiah, when Reb asked you?
Hi,
Yes.
my name is Jeremiah, and I go to Hollis.
Thanks, Jeremiah. All right, well, give yourself a hand for that. So I love that self-introduction. I find it when everyone introduces, it's like a level set. You know, we're all here together now, and a lot of the, first heard work on the West Side, aspiration. Kind of I think taking a frame from Dr. Martin Luther King to be a beloved community. And for me, the first part about it is to be, and here we all being together. But by introducing and building community, that's that first step. So thanks for taking time to do that, and hopefully you heard some folks that you might be able to connect with that after the program. And now for our next part, what we wanted to do with the program was to give an update on our Next Chapter campaign. We officially launched the campaign August 2nd, and it's a fundraising campaign to raise philanthropic funds, charitable funds, to build out the rest of our land holdings that we've been able to acquire over the last couple of years. And I'll say more about that in a second. But we really want to take the time to explain the why behind it, what we believe it's going to achieve, and then when I kind of finish with an overview, was going to bring up, Rachel Carey, Chief Real Estate Officer, along with Derrick Jordan, who's overseeing a lot of the multifamily build out, to answer any questions. So our goal with this is to really explain what we're doing, and then take some time to answer some questions. And we're first going to start with a testimonial video that we have. So I think we're going to show the video next, and then I'm going to come up and give some overview remarks. But the testimonial video, some of y'all may recognize some of the folks in the testimonial video, but it's all folks who have participated in various aspects of our Home on the West Side program.
Great men and women of the civil rights movement lived in this neighborhood.
knowing that sent chills through my body. Being able to walk the same streets or being in the same neighborhood that these leaders walk. So with me knowing that just give me motivation, really. The Westside Future Fund is very committed to this neighborhood. Westside Future Fund has been a tremendous help. I was homeless. I didn't have anywhere to stay. This is my first apartment. I've been staying here for 3 years. It's been a big help.
I was on my way to be homeless before I was connected with the Westside Future Fund. I couldn't find sustainable housing. There were a lot of people that would reach back out, but it would be like triple what I could afford. This house was brand new when we moved in it, and we love our house and our house loves us. I feel like I'm still in a dream. I feel like just happy, and I'm able to pour what they pour into me, I'm able to pour into other people.
It gave me my first apartment I had in 50 years. So, and based on income rent, I love it. It had impacted my life so much because I was living with my mama and I wanted to know how I was going to live in my mama's house. So I filled out for the application. I love my neighborhood. I love my community. I love it.
Westside Future Fund helping me also impacted my kids' life, because if I'm homeless, it'd be totally different if I didn't have my kids to spend quality time with them. If I didn't have nowhere to stay, thanks to Westside Future Fund, I have somewhere to stay.
I feel like the Westside Future Fund is helping my kids achieve their dreams, because my kids are just thriving, and they are thriving. They are happy, smiling. They play outside. You know, we used to be in our old neighborhood, they couldn't play outside. Now they can play outside. They can just be children.
If the people of this neighborhood get pushed out, they won't be able to take advantage of the opportunities that Westside Future has at hand.
Deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome.
I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love
will have the final word in reality.
I believe there's still hope for a brighter tomorrow.
I have the audacity to believe
that people everywhere
can have 3 meals a day for their bodies,
education and culture for their minds,
dignity and quality and freedom for their spirits.
I believe what self-centered man has torn down,
other centered man could build up.
I still believe that we shall overcome.
Still believe we shall overcome.
I still believe that we shall overcome.
I still believe that we shall overcome.
I still believe that we shall overcome.
Deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome.
All right, thank you. We have the voice of the graduate of the Booker T. Washington High School. So wanted to start our overview first. Just wanted to acknowledge we have 2 of our board members here this morning. But our Next Chapter campaign, the volunteers you see on our board here play a big role in our success and going out there and fundraising. So they're active in helping us connect into various corporations and their independent foundations around town. But I won't go through everyone on the board, but you can see in our current chair, Dr. Beverly Tatum and Dallas, who's our chair-elect. Thank you for being here this morning. And you can also see some of the ex officio members we have on our board to ensure kind of our partnership with the city. Eugene Jones from Atlanta Housing, or Terry Lee, thanks for being here this morning. The CEO of Atlanta Housing. Courtney English, who's the mayor's housing and policy advisor. Along with that, and we also have on the ex officio, Captain Wolf, who actually lives in Vine City off of Magnolia. But a great board. And as a reminder, many when we stood up the Westside Future Fund, coming out of a group called the Atlanta Committee for Progress, this is back to 2014. At the time it was stood up, there was a lot of awareness that the kind of suffering and challenges that were in the neighborhoods that the Westside Future Fund was focused were true of the kind of the greater West Side. So it was never meant to not suggest that there was need across the neighborhood. I know some of the organizations that have started up since then are in the house this morning as well, like the Grove Park Foundation. But when we launched the Westside Future Fund, the alignment was around first the Westside Tax Allocation District, which is English Avenue, Vine City, and then right when the Westside Future Fund was getting launched, the city won a choice award for Scholars Landing. And so those three neighborhoods were Vine City, AUC, and Asheview Heights. So those were why those were added that set up, the focus area of the Westside Future Fund. And so when we started our work, one of the things that was still true today, but an amazing amount of disinvestment had occurred. So the neighborhoods had really deteriorated. And one thing we really focused on as part of our work is buying up a lot of the blighted property to redevelop it. Can y'all advance this slide? Because the clicker's not, there it goes. And so one of the ways and I was just when we started our work with the land acquisition, is we first had to raise a fair amount of funding to even go out and be able to buy land to begin to develop it. And we were very lucky that 10 Atlantic Corporations was led by Chick-fil-A that basically took cash that they have on their balance sheet to put together what we call an impact fund, but it loans money to the Westside Future Fund and some other not-for-profits as well, not just us, but it's because it's not, the corporations aren't typically in this type of a business, and all that we pledged to them was over 15 years that we would give you your money back. So they pledged, various levels of investment, the highest being 20 million, the lowest being 5 million, and our commitment was 15 years from now, you'll just get your money back. But that then enables very, very low-cost loans to the Westside Future Fund for land acquisition, for development, and also permanent financing. So it's been an enormous enabler, and that's why you see the phrase return of capital, but not on capital. But to deliver the very deep affordability is where we've really leaned into philanthropy. And what you see on the right are a lot of the philanthropic folks that have enabled the progress we've made to date that you saw reflected in the video just a few minutes ago. And one of the things that I know Dallas was here remembers when the neighborhoods, when he was growing up in Hunter Hills, in a very different position, but you go back to the early 1960s, just the four neighborhoods that are the focus area of the Westside Future Fund had over 50,000 residents. Overwhelmingly black because of Jim Crow and segregation, and also, so a mixed income because there was lack of choice in the black community, so the upper class, middle class, and lower wage class all lived, I think you call it a gumbo. And I think one of the things that you spoke, in a recent event, Al spoke to this, is that everyone treated everyone the same. Like you didn't really know who made more than others, and it really did feel like a beloved community. Barriers came down, jobs leaving a lot of the urban core, and the neighborhoods depopulated to a low of about 15,000, and many of those that were left were the folks on the lower age or seniors on fixed income. And I think in Dallas, in your own words, a lot of the black middle and upper class, sought out better opportunities around the region, but it left kind of a lot of disinvestment, followed. And one of the things, and again, I'm kind of borrowing some of Dallas's words, is that these neighborhoods, when they were fully populated, were vibrant places of black intellectual capital, of black business leadership, of black faith leadership. So it was a thriving community, and that's why we have the frame, restore strengths, to go back to something they were as opposed to something that never has happened. And what you see there is a slide of the Pasco's restaurant, which was a thriving nightclub, restaurant, motor lodge hotel, and also became very famous in the civil rights movement as the meeting place for a lot of the civil rights leaders during the movement. And one of the things that I've reflected on when I started the Westside Future Fund in 2016, and I grew up on the east side of Atlanta, so I grew up in the part of Atlanta. I'm a native Atlantan, but very different. I don't look like a lot of the people that live on the west side. Some of the experiences that people have on the west side are not experiences that I had growing up on the east side of Atlanta. And when we started the work, we actually started these Transform Westside Summits. Raise your hand if you've been coming to Transform Westside Summits kind of from the very beginning. And I think I see a few in the room, right? And so when we first started the meetings, there was a lot of tension in the room because it was like, who are these people, meaning me, right? like a lot of the folks in the community, like who are these folks who are showing up saying they want to help? Are they for real? Will it be genuine? And a lot of, early suspicion, but I think over time, one of the things I've really appreciated is just by coming back, doesn't mean we always agree, but we build trust, I think, by just being together and building relation. And what I've learned as a part of that is if you really want to earn trust, and this is what I try to reflect with our whole team, people have to get to know each other. So if you're trying to help folks, and you're not naturally from the same part of the community, how important it is to earn trust by showing up. But these Transform Westside Summits now, we've estimated we've had over 10,000 attendees since we've been doing these over the last 7 years. And I have a lot of gratitude because I have met so many people and connected to so many people through the Transform Westside Summits. And this goes back to 2017, is when we were thinking through and took a lot of learnings from purpose-built communities that started out of East Lake Atlanta, saying we want to return economic mobility to the neighborhoods. What are the different things you really need to focus on? We aligned on 4 impact strategies that best practice said these are the things you need to do simultaneously to really deliver economic mobility for people that are born and live in the neighborhoods. And this goes back to 2017, and we identified different not-for-profits as well as some of the public investments needed in each of these impact areas. And back in 2017, Mr. Arthur Blank, as part of his real commitment to help lift up the West Side, he invited many of the companies that at that time had signed on to be stadium partners, and part of what he wanted them to do was to also consider philanthropic investments in the West Side. So he actually hosted a dinner where we stood up 1, 2, 3, 4 and said, these are the various investments that are needed. So, on the number 1, safety and security, was the Atlanta Police Foundation was the lead there, the Cradle to Career Education. And all of the things under 1, 2, 3, 4, when we laid this out back in 2017, none of this was done. Everything you see under 1, 2, 3, 4 is done today. So you go under number 1, the new at Promise Center, English Avenue, officers living in the community, the cadet housing off of North Avenue, the YMCA, and I know we're working on the YWCA coming online too, but the new YMCA Early Learning Center and their headquarters. When we started back in 2016, Hollis was the closed Kennedy School. Now it's reopened and actually also has early learning in its basement. Westside Works, the Blank's job training investment, the Quest Impact Center. There are now 3 new parks on the West Side. The West Side Connector Trail, that path built out. We, along with the Foodwell Alliance, own a building that's really become a not-for-profit hub, especially around food insecurity. And a big focus of the work back in 2016, 2017 was the Westside Land Use Framework Plan that laid out how the community really wanted to see its growth over the coming decade. And so these are all the community assets that have been built over the last 6, 7 years. I'll go through each one of them. But then when we really focused at the Westside Future Fund, because it was the area that didn't seem like it had enough resources given the velocity of movement we expected with market rate housing coming back in, was the mixed income communities. And so raise your hand if you were like part of the meetings that we did, the Westside Land Use Framework Plan. If you went to any of the, I know Tillman, yeah, I know you were very involved. So when we did the Westside Land Use Framework Plan, raise your hand if you're in any of the community meetings. Okay. So one of the things that was reflected very strongly in those community meetings was, yes, we need people to move back into the neighborhood because the neighborhoods are depopulated. But no to us being pushed out as a part of people moving back in. So, and very clearly, and I remember very specifically from the English Avenue Neighborhood Association, the Vine City Association, saying, we want to ensure that if it's not person for person, the demographic, the wage class that lives in these neighborhoods now can still be and afford to be in these neighborhoods in the future. And so one of the things we did back in 2017 with various city agencies, I think Terry Lee, you were a part of it at the time, is understanding what did community retention mean? Like, how are people living in the community at that time? And we learned that only 14% of the households were owner-occupied, right? Which was a surprise for many people, is that most of the households were not owner-occupied. That meant over 80% of the residents were renters. And at that time, only 20% of the renters were renting or getting vouchers from Atlanta Housing on what we would consider kind of protected, that they're not going to be priced out because they were being subsidized on land owned by Atlanta Housing. That left over 60% of the residents renting from private investors, single family, multifamily, and duplex. And we identified about 1,500 that were earning $25,000 and less. And back to that time, I learned a term I didn't really know. It's called, policy folks call it naturally occurring affordable housing. $500 a month, $550 a month, $600 a month. But it's often, if it's not subsidized by Atlanta housing, in horrible shape. So it's affordable, but for the wrong reasons. And that was, at that time, we said that's the real displacement risk, that wage class, because those investors are going to cash out, which is exactly what's been happening in the last 6-7 years. And so we set an overall target of saying we want to ensure 1,500 high-quality, affordable units targeted for that wage class at $25,000 and less, which is why we call it 60% area median income and less. So it's very deep affordability. And at the time, we said Atlanta Housing had 2 undeveloped sites, Herndon and Scholars Landing. And we said when those sites are developed, the subsidized part, not the market rate housing, will deliver 500 high-quality affordable units. And kudos, Terry, Atlanta Housing on track to deliver that. Then we said, we're going to take on 1,000 more to embed this affordability deep in the neighborhoods, especially English Avenue and Vine City. We, the Westside Future Fund, took on 800 along with other not-for-profits to get to the thousands. So that was a big commitment at the time. And then we also wanted to spark home ownership with new single family. And you know, Ebony referenced this morning standing up for those legacy homeowners, the anti-displacement tax fund. So these were all established coming out of the Westside Land Use Framework Plan. So when I do a lot of tours and folks will say, what does the community think? Well, I said, well, the community told us what they thought in the Westside Land Use Framework Plan. We're trying to implement it. And we made a lot of progress, you know, collectively. We, the Westside Future Fund, other great organizations as well. You can see how many high quality affordable rental units. So we're counting units that we have done as well as others. So you can see our units are in one color, the third party projects in a different, and what's needed to hit goal. And then where we are in our single family pipeline and how many folks we're serving the anti-displacement tax fund. So another thing we're really intentional about is looking to build community as well as attract new investment into the neighborhood is doing very high quality investment. And one of the things that also came out of the Westside Land Use Framework Plan was preserve the historic character of the neighborhoods. So we have a bias not to tear down, even though it would be cheaper to rebuild. Because when you go retrofit these multifamilies, you have to put in a lot of things that weren't required at the time that make that development cost more expensive. But this is in English Avenue, in partnership with Invest Atlanta. Actually, Terry Lee, when she was Chief Housing Officer, helped unlock this for us. So we got a $1 lease, and then we raised some funds, and we have Atlanta Housing vouchers to help subsidize it, but it's at high quality units today. This was one we did in English Avenue. We bought up a vacant multifamily. We announced the acquisition right after Keisha Lance Bottom was elected mayor, and she cut the ribbon. And now it's 31 high-quality units on James P. Brawley. And so this is actually a single family on Neal Street. You can see what it looked like when we bought it. It was a tear down. We have a great partnership with Atlanta Habitat where they use their community build program to help build out homes for us because they get their materials donated. We can lower that price point. But it's occupied today at 79 Neal Street. And so some of the work that's going on right now, and Derrick can speak more to this, but this is one we're about to open as soon as we get the certificate of occupancy on James P. Brawley. It's, I think it's 8 units, 2 bedroom, 1 bath. This is on Echo Street, and this is on Paynes Avenue. And so one of the things you can see we've done is to try to go buy these blighted properties and repurpose them high quality with great design. And so one we're real proud of is 220 Sunset, which is next to 234 Sunset. And, you know, Tillman and I see Maria here were part of when the King Center sold 234 Sunset, Dr. Martin Luther King's home and Coretta's home. Along with it was 220. And the Park Service was going to tear it down. It had a demolition permit on it to put parking. So it had an active demolition permit because it was so deteriorated. Tillman and others from the Vine City Civic Association reminded the community that Maynard Jackson's mother and father built that multifamily when Maynard's father was a minister at Friendship Baptist Church. And Maynard lived there until he was 13. And kind of a strange coincidence of history, you know, the Jackson family sold it to the King family. And the King Center was actually started there. And so with that, we then acquired it from the King Center for $250,000. But we wanted it actually had a demolition permit, and we have gone to work to totally renovate it in alignment with how it looked historically, and we're getting a state historic tax credit. And thanks to a recent grant award from the Coca-Cola Company, we know we can get this finished. Actually, the Arthur and Blank Family Foundation provided the starting grant for the work. But doing a historic rehab like this, it's 5 units, just to give you a sense of how expensive it is. It's over $500,000 a unit bring this back to historical standards, but it's the right thing to do. So these are some of our case studies. Some of y'all may know the Canty family that lives in English Avenue. He works for the At Promise Center. And I should say a really important part of our housing program, which is again coming out of Land Use Framework Plan, was who benefits from our housing. And so a big point of the community was we think folks that have some connection to the neighborhoods ought to go first, right? So we developed community retention guidelines to reflect that say all of our housing is prioritized by did you live in the neighborhoods? Do you work in the neighborhoods? Or did you graduate from the Booker T. Washington High School or one of the local historically black colleges? So it's one of those criteria. So when folks come into our Home on the West Side pipeline, it's managed by Tamika, we first ask people to qualify against that criteria. So if you don't meet that criteria in some way, we don't want to list any of our single family, for example, on MLS. We want to ensure we're reaching people that hit this criteria. So the Canty family, he lived in English Avenue because he worked there. That's how they hit the criteria. She works at the Coca-Cola Company. So this was Kevin Locke. This is a home on James P. Brawley. Kevin is a teacher. He was a renter. And one of the things we learned when we set a sales price, because we're buying land, the land is not being, in some cases it is, but in most cases we're buying the land and we have to set a price that allows us to pay back our impact fund. And so when you do the land cost plus the development cost, you can see we set our sales price at just at what to get our money out. And maybe even take a little bit of a loss, but once someone qualifies for a mortgage like Kevin, it's not enough to hit that. So we've layered in one thing we've learned to do on top of what the city does and what Atlanta Housing does, we layer in down payment assistance. It goes up to $60,000 depending on your earnings. So at 60% AMI, we'll do 60 all the way up to 120. It burns down over 10 years, so you can see what that meant to Kevin, that down payment assistance. So we think this is a great way to build equity too, because everyone, I think pretty much we're serving, for really for their family, are first-time home buyers. And as we think about, the kind of community we want, and actually Dr. King spoke a lot in the latter part of his life about the need for high-quality housing for all. And I mentioned at the beginning is that all the colors you see, we've been able to, and Lee Harrop in the back has done a great job on our land acquisition efforts. We work through various brokers to buy up a lot of blighted and vacant land. Nearly all, and some, a minority of cases we buy property that's occupied, but our preference is to go buy vacant blighted land so we can repurpose it, because we feel like the market's not gonna do that the way we could. But we bought up over 26 acres in English Avenue and over 10 acres in Vine City. And so you can see the holdings, and we've also been strategic about clustering those acquisitions around parks, around the James P. Brawley corridor. And so now we've hidden, back to those targets I shared, we now have enough land to hit those targets. But to hit that deep affordability, 60% AMI and less, to fund that down payment assistance program, that's where the philanthropy comes in. So now that we have the land, we have a program, we know how much it costs to do development because we've done enough now to have a cost model. And we have enough land to do 285 multifamily units. That's over 11 different properties. We want 185 of those to be 60% AMI and less. 225 single family. When we are modeling single family, we're figuring an average down payment of $50,000 per home. And so then that adds up to the philanthropy you see along with our operating cost. But we have ready to go. We don't have to go raise this. The impact fund pulled down another $45 million, and the mayor is committed through Invest Atlanta, that is, we're developing, pull down another $10 million in public grants. So that $55 million triggers another $55 million that's ready to go to do this build out. And we want to raise this money as fast as we can because we don't want to start building something until we have the funds to build it out. And so this is some of what we'll see. So these are land homes we have in English Avenue. So you can see the before, what we wanted to look after. This is an acquisition we bought up in December. These were units that all had the sign that said $450 a month for a room. This is really, people shouldn't have been living in these units, but we've been relocating everyone. Once everyone's out, we're going to demolish them and build what you see on the right, high quality rental housing. And this is right behind Katherine Johnson Memorial Park. We basically have been able to acquire the whole block and want to then develop it as a mix of townhomes and multifamily. And this is actually across from the House Innovation Academy. It's a vacant piece of land that we own and we want to do a multifamily. So yeah, so that's the overview, and I'm going to ask now that for Derrick and Rachel to come up so we can take your questions. But hopefully that gave you a sense, if you've heard about our fundraising or read about it, it gives you a better sense of the why behind it. So come on up, Rachel and Derrick. And now what we want to do, and I think someone's going to have a mic, but if we want to take questions. So our goal with this part of the session, that's why I asked Rachel and Derrick to help, was to take your questions.
You invited us up here for the hardest part, right? Just questions.
Yes, I have a question regarding rooming houses. You mentioned the neighborhoods at Vine City and English Avenue, but Ashview Heights is a part of this unit. And when you pass by, I live on the main street. I'm the only homeowner on the block. It is a legacy house. It's been in my family over 90 years. How do you plan to attack rooming houses in the various neighborhoods? Because they're illegal.
You want to take
I can take a stab. We could tag team it.
We can tag team it. I know you have strong feelings about it.
You know, one of the things about rooming houses, first, your first step should be to your council person. Your first step, we'll go through several.
I know how to do that. I'm asking you.
Okay.
In terms of purchasing housing in Ashview Heights, I guess I should say, or to Washington.
So I can talk about that. I mean, Ms. Bush, you know, we have a few properties that we have bought in Ashview Heights, mostly around Fair Street. But in terms of us going in and buying like a rooming house to clear it out, you know, we have not done that historically because of the displacement that it presents, even though we understand that it is a concern both for the people living in the houses and for the neighbors who have to deal with kind of those unsafe conditions with the number of people living in there. I think, you know, for us, the most alleviating thing that we can do in terms of what we're planning to do over the next years is to build more of the high quality affordable housing so that people aren't forced to be in that situation where they've got to be living 7-8 people to a house that's really only meant for one family. I don't know, John, if you want to add more to that. I mean, we're aware of the problem. We've talked about it at different times, both in Vine City and Ashview Heights.
No, say on the Ashview Heights, when we started our work, most of the highest percent of folks in the anti-displacement tax fund live in actually Ashview Heights, the Booker T. Washington neighborhood. But when we also started the work, it had, there wasn't much as abandonment and blight, and because of the proximity of the Westside Trail, that the pricing in Ashview Heights was already, when we started our acquisition work, was already very high. And so partly, as we look to just get kind of our own return on dollar, that's why you saw us more focused on English Avenue, Vine City, with the sense that Ashview Heights was further along and really focused in on serving people in Ashview Heights through our anti-displacement tax fund.
Derrick, did you have other things you wanted to say?
Did we address it? Okay, because I want to make sure it's some things as a Westside Future Fund that we're capable of doing, and then there's things that we just cannot. But when I start mentioning about addressing it to your council member, this is the type of problem that you have to constantly stay on, the same way we have to do with code enforcement, right? You get one ticket, you get another ticket, you get another ticket. I mean, over time, that has to build up. We don't have a one-stop solution for that. We don't. Like Rachel said, we try to steer away from displacement of any residents that live in the neighborhood. So that wouldn't be something we would address specifically. But if you had, or the Ashview community has some strategies that they would like to bring to the forefront, that's a place that we probably could help.
I think part of the problem too is that when you're an owner of a illegal rooming house, you don't necessarily want to sell because you're getting more money than you would otherwise.
Well, none of our homes in our inventory are rooming houses.
Good morning. I have two questions. First, one, John, thank you for the trip down memory lane. It was really good to sort of see the fruition of a lot of work that we started when I was in the planning department. So thank you so much. But as you look at your next chapter, I'm really interested how Westside Future Fund is incorporating the input of legacy residents with residents that have recently moved to the community in the future redevelopment opportunities. And I asked this question because Reynoldstown was a neighborhood that literally had a lot of transition between 2004 and possibly 2010, and that was the tension between the legacy residents and the new residents as the neighborhood continued to grow and flourish.
I'm happy to talk about that, Terry. Thanks for the question. Talking about keeping legacy residents engaged and also bringing in the new residents so that they're integrated into the community. What we're doing on the legacy front is for every project that we do, particularly as we're looking for Westside TAD dollars from, we go through community engagement for each of those projects. So for instance, we just finished a cycle of meetings with English Avenue Neighborhood Association approval on Saturday and NPUL approval this past Tuesday for one of our projects on Sunset Avenue. And so for us, that's very important to get out there in front of the community, to talk to them about what we're doing, to show them the plans, to take their feedback, because for this project that we just got approval for 390 Sunset, they asked that one of the 3-bedroom units that we had at the project be designated for 30% AMI families. And they also asked that if we're successful in obtaining Atlanta Housing HomeFlex vouchers for that project after it's built, that we commit to allocating those vouchers to the 60% AMI level to achieve deeper affordability. So we made those revisions, in our unit mix, in our affordability mix, and in the pro forma, and brought that back to the community to show them that that's what we did. And so we were really happy to get their, buy-in on that project.
In addition to that, unlike other neighborhoods in the past, the Westside Future Fund's Impact Fund has allowed us to be in the forefront of actually acquiring land and owning it. In other neighborhoods, you didn't have that acquisition. You had smaller CDCs who were dependent upon grants to buy a lot here, a parcel here. But we've been able to come in and leverage our Impact Fund not only to buy our acreage, but also lend to other developers in the neighborhood that are doing 60% AMI. That's Quest 35. We have an array of people in our loan portfolio, including homes in Ashview Heights, agencies in Ashview Heights, and working throughout the community in which we are committed to serving just 60% AMI. Right? And that's been key leverage for us. That $120 million that we had access to, it went to 60% AMI. Other neighborhoods were fighting against other private market interests, flippers. We haven't did that because we jumped off the porch early, if I can say it that way, and got in the game, started buying property, and now we have a way to control what happens throughout the communities.
And the last thing, Terry, and I think we insured and we helped to raise some philanthropy to help pay for it, that special purpose interest districts were done for each of the neighborhoods. So special purpose interest districts for English Avenue, Vine City, the Booker T. Washington neighborhood, Ashview Heights, AUC, and those set the entitlements, and those also set, which was very important to the community, design standards. And so that as new development comes online, and one of the things we've also really honored is that any changes to those, if developers want to have any kind of an entitlement change, they have to go through the neighborhood and through the NPU, right? Especially when we first got them done, developers would call me thinking we could just wave a magic wand and change them, and we would say, no, you got to go through the neighborhood, and we have to go through the neighborhood on our own projects. So one way we really want to make sure that the community aspirations were honored was those SPIs, and then the city's planning process forces people to go through if they want to do something different to make sure they're aligned with the community input.
I did just want to say one more thing about the new residents, that portion of your question, Terry. As we're leasing up, properties that we're opening, we're going through our wait list from our Home on the Westside program, which prioritizes legacy residents. So by and large, the people that we're moving into our new multifamily homes are from the community and have been here for a very long time. That leads me to say that we are currently working on opening up some new buildings, and then we're going to be starting on some other new buildings before the end of the year. And for the past couple of years, we've had our rental application through Home on the Westside closed down because we had such a long waiting list. Now that we've been able to open up that waiting list, go through, and we're starting to offer units to people who have been waiting patiently for the past couple of years, I wanted to make sure to announce that we're accepting new applications for renters for Home on the Westside. So if you want to rent a unit from us, go to our website, go to the Home on the Westside landing page, click on the Renters button, and then you'll be able to do our intake survey that establishes your community retention ties, and then we'll get that information, be in contact with you to verify your name and put you on the wait list.
Derrick, you, Rachel, and John have touched on this a little bit. What is the relationship with the aggressive developers that are coming into the highly valued property that is in this community, and actually all in-town communities in Atlanta, who are just so-called gobbling this up? How do you enable them to be a part of the movement that you're trying to create and not just be isolated? I know you've spoken a little bit about this, but what's the vision in terms of the next few years plan to deal with them?
Well, Neil, let me just make sure you're asking about how we interact with market rate developers coming into the neighborhood, or how we try to protect against that?
Both. I mean, we all know, and John spoke to years, we're coming in to where we are, to where you are, Westside Future Fund. So how do we impact that in a way that works for us and not just happens without us?
Sure. Well, I'll let John speak to this too, because I know we've spent a lot of time, and Derrick has too, over the past few years, talking to developers who have plans of doing things in the neighborhood. Sometimes they're with an affordability component and sometimes without. But I think one of the things that we do is, working with outside developers who do plan to do affordability, being able to provide financing to them through our impact fund, which helps get their projects moving and sort of gives them a clear through line to getting those projects done. But then, a lot of times John and I and John and Derrick will meet with developers who are coming into the community and wondering sort of what we're about. And we try to do our best to, advocate to them the importance of, honoring the community's design guidelines, going through the community engagement process in a meaningful way, and, doing what's right and what's required if they're not willing to go in above beyond there.
Developers, investors, who are, they just want to.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure.
So as a business model, we've been able to interact with private investors in a way that allows us, because of our philanthropy, we pay more than appraised value, right? So it's often that an investor may come to us and say, hey, I own 3 acres. Are you all willing to purchase it? And they may say they want $5 million. It's not worth $5 million today. But because of our philanthropy and because of our mission and purpose, we can work with that investor to get to a price point that is acceptable to him, where we can become the owner, right? So a lot of those opportunities where investors are just kind of hoping and wishing, not in a lot of cases, like we still have a business model that has to make financially sound decisions, but we can work with investors and upload or take those properties into, our kind of coffers and make sure they become affordable housing in the long run, if that answers your question. So we purchased a lot of acreage from private investors, not all just trying to get high dollar, but just private investors in general, because we have the funds to do that through our impact fund, philanthropy. So we've taken the charge and saying, hey, let us work with us to see if we can work out some deals.
So Mr. Wright's gonna ask his question, then we're gonna go to Maria, and we may be out of time at that point, but if you guys, are you able to stick around for a little while? Okay, so they can still answer some questions, okay?
I want to understand the math behind all of this. Did I hear you correctly to say that most of the down payments are $55,000? And I know as an investor, when I bought properties, I had to pay 20%. But it seems that that the individuals who are buying your property have to pay 20% down like they were investors. And I'm not sure, what is the monthly payments that the people are making? And normally, the financing is 30% of your income. Okay, so I'm trying to understand the math behind all of this. How does it work?
So, Reverend Wright, you're asking about the down payment assistance in the homes?
Yeah, it says, I thought John said something like 55,000.
On average, yeah, 50,000 per home.
Okay, so 55,000, and if you look at it as an investor, then you had to pay 20%. But as an individual, I think you only have to pay 10%. But that 10% is supposed to be 30% of your income. And if the people are making less than 35,000, I'm trying to understand the math and what is the monthly payments?
Sure, so great question. The way we do our single family, which was, John was showing Kevin as the example, is we set the cost of the house that we're going to sell based on our cost, right? And right now we're averaging about $325,000 per home. We know that's not going to be affordable to the vast majority of people who we are marketing our homes to. And that's why we set up our down payment assistance program. And what John was saying is that for purchasers who are at 80% AMI and below, we'll provide up to $60,000 of down payment assistance. That is a 0% interest, 0% principal. You never have to make payments on it as long as you stay in the home. Instant equity. So to your question about how people get that 20% equity or whatever, that's how they get it, is that's coming from us, from our charitable donations. And that's what helps make the home affordable. Because what's happening on the purchaser side is they're going to a lender, like a lender who's going to give them a mortgage. And that lender is responsible for working with them to figure out what is a sustainable monthly payment for them, right, for their mortgage. And then we find out, in working with the lender, what that mortgage amount is that is affordable to that purchaser. And then we backfill with our down payment assistance. And we also, require our purchasers to go out and see what they can get from Invest Atlanta and Atlanta Housing. So we've had purchasers who have gotten $95,000 of down payment assistance when you combine our down payment with Invest Atlanta and Atlanta Housings. And that's how we make home ownership affordable for people. And most of our purchasers I would say the vast majority of our purchasers are at 90% in AMI and below, with most of them being around 80% AMI. So we are hitting some very deep affordability targets on the single family home ownership side with that down payment assistance. Yeah, yep, that's how we do it.
Last question.
Maria Support, I have two questions. One maybe you can answer pretty quickly, and the other one I'd really like to get the thoughts behind it. One, I noticed that the goal for population that you have by 2040 is 40,000, when the Westside was at its most thriving state, was in the 60s, and the population was actually closer to 50,000. Can you tell me why your goal is 40,000? Second question, I noticed on one of the slides, or several of the slides, on the redevelopment of the houses, there were, of lots, there were some very wooded lots that looked like were totally clear-cut in order for the development. Yesterday, we saw historic flooding again, and in this area, as you know, a lot of what we have in this community got destroyed by floods in the early 2000s. I want to know how committed the Westside Future Fund is to sustainable development and making sure that we're not making the problems worse by cutting down our trees and not working to preserve them.
Yeah, well, on the first question, it was a projection based on if the neighborhoods repopulate and all the vacant lots have households, and the household size now is smaller than it was in the early 60s. So the average household size is just, that's the why, Maria, it's just the household size on average. People are having fewer children. And on the trees, I can, I'll let Rachel probably give a better answer. Go ahead, Rachel.
Actually, I think Derrick might give a better answer.
I think I have an answer. The Westside Future Fund spent $2 million in lead remediation. We spent $2 million in lead remediation of the soil and the lots that we own. This was not a loan, it wasn't, it was our money. And in that process, we found that the neglect that the neighborhood had seen, right, was just incredible. I've never seen any neighborhood in my 20 years of doing affordable housing that has been through the type of things that this neighborhood has been, right? So when we start talking about trees and what is our commitment here, we're committed to doing everything that it takes to make sure the neighborhood is safe. And that's both from crime, that's both from environmental, that's both from the quality of the housing that we develop. And our checkbook has proven that and shown that over the last 7 years. And as we move through doing developments, of course we take a look at the trees. The arborists give us fines and they patrol us just like everyone else. But we are looking at more so what's the total impact and what's needed here in the community, right? So we're hoping to build all of our developments in a way that's sustainable. So we're talking energy, we're talking watershed. Our plans now, when we're looking at site work, we're $1 million on our Boone development on site work alone, and the site has no trees, right? So a lot of these, we're taking them one by one. We're definitely working hand in hand with arborists to make sure that we're not taking down any trees that aren't necessarily needed to be taken down. And then the fact that we are taking down trees, we're replacing them, right? We're replacing them. All of our multifamily apartments that we're building or will build, we plan on owning those throughout the duration. So for the next 50, 60 years. So what I'm trying to lean toward here is that we're the kind of organization that's looking at all factors in front of us and developing and finding a path that works for everyone. And the best our ability.
And to say more on that point, Maria, is we have a partnership with Trees Atlanta. They've actually given us an award for some of our, replanting. And so any of our, multifamilies, as we work with them, sometimes we're dealing with abandoned properties because they've been sitting abandoned for so long, a tree has grown up, right? But there's also a shelter crisis, a housing crisis. So yeah, there's some trade-offs made, but when a tree is taken down, we plant more than we take down. So over time, we're increasing the tree cover, but you also have issues because of some where the growth has occurred, given all the abandonment, as you try to put in place more housing. So, but we try to, overall, we lean into more than what the city requires in terms of our replanting of trees. And as Derrick said, the other things we do and from an environmental remediation standpoint. So now, because in some cases, if you say save the tree, you're going to say we can't build a new multifamily. So that's a little bit of, yeah. No, completely. We'll talk more. We completely agree with you. We may differ a little bit about the tactics of that and what that, but we 100% agree on sustainable development. And you heard Derrick say and others, we really feel like we're leaning into that from all the different ways, from our design standards to our site remediation and all the things we are doing on sites. Are there ways to lean to do it even better? I'm sure, and we'll continue to kind of push on it. We absolutely agree.
And also when we're getting money from the city or from, federal or state funds, we have to go through a sustainability process where we're building that into our projects, both on a rehab and a new construction side. So we're meeting those sustainability requirements that are coming from these various agencies too.
All right, well, I know we're past time, so we want to say thank you. And we'll be around for a bit if people have more questions. We can talk about sustainability. But thanks everyone. I think we're gonna close out by doing you want to do the drawing, right?
Yes, I'd
All
like
right,
to.
let's do it.
Well, thank you guys. That was an awesome conversation. Thank you, Derrick. Thank you, Rachel. And thank you, John. You're going to stay here with me, right? You're staying with me, right? You're going to stay up here with me, right?
Yep.
Don't leave me alone. Okay, appreciate it. Okay, so we're a little over time, so I'm going to get right to it. You guys pull out your tickets. Home Depot Foundation has invested millions of dollars towards the revitalization of the Westside, and the gift card winner today, the red ticket number is 399-1077. 399-1077. Anybody? Miss Ebony, come on up. Come on up. Congratulations. There you go. A picture. There you go. Thank you. Congratulations. Okay, winning number for the blue ticket is 130697. 130697. 130697. No, okay, I remember. 130697. Okay, I'm going to move on. Next number, 130685. Blue ticket. 130685. There you go. Come on up. Congratulations. Goodwill of North Georgia. We know that their mission is to put people to work. There you go. Can we get a picture really quickly right here? Thank you. Thank you. Congrats. Also, before I forget, one last time for the free tickets, please see Mr. Mike Russell. Wave your hand over here, okay? And if you guys do have any questions, I know for a fact Mr. Tillman does, so make sure you come up and get your question answered, okay? Thank you. And
All right.
I think that's it. Get engaged with us again. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Also, if you watched live on YouTube today, make sure you go ahead and subscribe, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.